if somebody wants, let's say, their kids to floss their teeth more often, it's not a training issue. They know how to do it. So if I build a training course, I'm just wasting my time and money in that.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Virtual Coffee Break with Bublup. I'm your host, Wade Sellers, and today I've got Mr. Mike Taylor on the line. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Morning, Wade. Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. Mike Taylor is a learning specialist, a learning consultant. He works with companies, and I'm not going to steal his thunder here, but he's very comfortable on camera, so I think we're going to have a great interview today. Mike, let me ask you a question. What are you drinking this morning, and where are you calling in from?
Calling in from Columbus, Ohio in the United States, and I got a little hot coffee to try to keep me warm. We're a little chilly here this morning.
Right on, man. Right on.
I've always been energized by the process of learning. So I was the kid in school who didn't mind being in school, which is probably a rarity in a lot of places. If we're traveling somewhere, my family's like, oh, hey, there's the historical marker. You better go read it, right? Like they know that's kind of my thing, is just learning about stuff. And I'm really energized by that. So that's kind of driven my path throughout my career to the point to where I am today, where I'm designing learning experiences and helping people apply learning technologies and all that stuff to kind of make learning more efficient.
The middle part, the sense part, this is where we're processing, verifying, is it a reputable source? Is it relevant? Adding value where we can. And then the last part is share. So we're going to do something with it. Email it, post it, publish it. Hopefully there's some action in the end.
And so I just kind of nerd out about all that stuff and what is the research behind it and putting all that stuff together. And, I feel pretty fortunate. I have a lot of days where it's not I have to go to work, but I get to go to work. And I think that's a pretty cool place to hang out. So it could be literally anything. So I've done things around onboarding. That's a good candidate. A lot of things are compliance driven. So there's laws and regulations about what people must do and how they do it. Operations. So I've done things around health and safety in power plants. And so that's really another cool thing to sort of feed my learning need is, as you're doing this stuff, you have to learn it along the way. And so it really could be applied to literally anything in any context in any industry. So. Well, one of the things I've spoken a lot about is most people, when they come to somebody like me asking for training, the first thing is this training is not always the answer. And so, not giving pushback, but just asking clarifying questions. So for example, somebody comes to me, it says, hey, can you build this training for us? I wouldn't say no, but I would say something like, yes, and would you be open to see if there are maybe better, potentially more efficient, cheaper, ultimately better options? Would you like to explore that? Because sometimes people will send training to do a job that training's not appropriate for. And so they still may say no, but we've got to sort of clarify that and verify, like, is this really a training need or not? There's a lot of reasons people don't perform the way that they should perform. Maybe they don't have the right tools. Maybe the environment is bad. There are disincentives to their performance. So there's all these other reasons that training can't fix. One of the examples that's pretty clear, a lot of people will get was if somebody wants, let's say, their kids to floss their teeth more often, it's not a training issue. They know how to do it. So if I build a training course, I'm just wasting my time and money in that. So that gets to incentives and all that sort of stuff. So that would be the first thing I would recommend to anybody who's doing that kind of work is just verify that it's going to help. Sort of the doctors, do no harm sort of thing. And sometimes it may be training, sometimes it may be training in combination with other things, but that's always a good place to start. Yeah, so two things. One of the silver lining around the pandemic is people can't do as much classroom face-to-face. So I think people have two defaults when it comes to training: is put everybody in a classroom, bring people from all over the place, put them in a classroom. That's a default. And the other default is sort of the lecture based. So just tell them a bunch of stuff and assume that they're going to learn it. And so those two things are, I think, pretty poor defaults. There's a time and place for both of those, but not nearly as much as it gets used.
Mm-hmm. I come from a coding background, and a lot of our learning is just project-based learning. You just get thrown in the deep end, and you come out the other side with a basic app, but the 7 concepts you learned along the way that's how it stuck, was the fact that we had to execute and like implement something. I imagine that has to go into this as well, because you can only retain so much from a long lecture, but you have to figure out ways to like make it stick, right?
Right, and that's a great example. I think giving people practical hands-on things where they can apply what they're learning, but you can go too far in that direction as well, right? So if you're just lost and you're sinking in that deep end, that's not good either. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find what's the balancing point, what's the sweet spot to make that learning efficient so that I can do it quickly and get up to speed and do what I need to do as quickly as possible without spinning my wheels and becoming frustrated and maybe even giving up. Well, I also speak at a lot of conferences and do workshops in that context. And so I've put different talks inside a folder, and then each of those talks, I'll do a roll up for those resources in the very front of any kind of talk or workshop. And I tell them, like, don't worry about scribbling all these notes down because you're going to have it all. So, right, I want people to pay attention to what I'm saying and have the conversation. And then the resources are available.
So I imagine that when you're putting a rollout and you do one of these talks and you're working with a company, there's probably a bunch of stuff that benefits all of the clients or companies. But then I'm sure that there's got to be some niche type stuff that makes sense in different sectors or even business units or whatnot. And then you can basically reuse your resource, place the contextual stuff in there, and then send that out to the other person.
Absolutely. That's exactly one of the things I love about that roll up, is being able to do different spins or different versions, because there's always some sort of unique context. So whether it's the industry or, maybe I'll do one session for learning designers, I'll do another one for speakers or present, and there's always some sort of unique spin, or at least there should be if you want to sort of tailor it to your audience. Mm-hmm. And it's really great for that. And that visual aspect, there's a bunch of different ways that you can just send a pile of links, but there's none that I have found that have that, like it looks like a web page, like it has images and the visual appeal of that. I'm a big believer that matters what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And this is far and away the best way I've found to do that.
I love that. I think it's cool too. When it comes to that visual aspect, it's not just a Google Drive with a bunch of links and resources. You actually get a little bit of memory of what you're looking at. So when you go back to it, you can quickly scroll and get to the thing that you were expecting, right, to find later on.
With sections and headers, right? Like it's scannable. So I know what I'm looking for. It's not this section. There it is. And you can get right to it and not wade through, a massive list of just cluttered stuff.
Cool. Well, I look forward. Keep me in touch. I want to know how that works out for you. Mike, if anyone has any questions when it comes to building learning programs and working within their companies to do this, or even how you're using this role as a takeaway and what you're gaining from it, how can someone reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find online. My website is mike-taylor.org. I post a lot on social media, so LinkedIn, Mike Taylor, and then Twitter, I'm at @TMikeT. So you search for Mike Taylor and Learning, I'm pretty sure that I'll come up near the top.
That's awesome. We'll put all the details down in the description below. Mike, it was a pleasure talking to you today. Thanks so much for having a conversation with us and sharing some of your knowledge. I hope to have you on again, and we'll see you in the next one.
My pleasure, Wade. Thanks for the conversation. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers to you.